before you watch or listen to this podcast, we do dive into topics like drug addiction, sex, abuse. So if any of these things are triggering, please feel free to hold off from not only watching the show, but listening to this episode of the podcast. Hi guys, welcome back to Media Diet. My name is Emily. This is Chelsea. Today we're going to be talking about the widely controversial Euphoria. So we're going to give an overview if you haven't seen the season 1, season 2 show. There are a total of 18 episodes directed and written by Sam Levinson. Euphoria is following this character Rue, who's played by Zendaya. We absolutely love her. So it follows her journey and relationship with mainly opiates and how drug addiction in general will affect not only the lives of teenagers, but their families, their friends, and just the overall drug scene that can come out of high school. There are some wonderful elements about this show that has made it one of my favorite shows that I've watched in 2022 so far that we're going to dive into. But the premise is just the drama behind being a drug-addicted teenager. What did you like about the show in general?
I mean, overall, I think that just the cinematic elements down to like the framing and composition, as well as the coloring that they decided to use. And it's not just like the post-production process of like the color grading, but what colors they decided to implement into the different scenes. I don't have anything in particular to pick out, but I just remember being very awestruck.
Yeah. There's this sort of dreamlike, soft element to the show, which I think adds to the romanticization of drugs, which is like one of the biggest controversies to the show, of like this concept of, yes, you're wanting to show that element. That's why a lot of not only teenagers, but people in general will get into drugs, because of that literal euphoric feeling you get from it. But also the detriment of, does this make drugs look attractive and appealing to teenagers who are literally watching this show? Do you have thoughts?
Regardless of media presence and like framing of drugs, teenagers are more likely to obviously just get exposed to that in their own friend groups.
Yeah.
Because as a teenager, a lot of people are experimenting with a whole bunch of different things that I think that Euphoria also shows is like, you're not only experimenting with drugs, teenagers are also experimenting with their sexuality, their their looks, the way that they present themselves, because it really is a time of discovery. In my experience, I would say that like I never consumed any media that was like, oh, this makes me want to go out and like try drugs. I will say that like anything that I have touched has always been from friends and parties. And I think that they do a decent job of portraying that too, is, you know, no one's hiding drugs and Halloween candy, you know, in Euphoria. Like, it's your friends that you're around and, hey, do you want to try this? But I will say that there is a lot more pressure these days that come from media. So, and teenagers are different now than they were even whenever I was a teenager. At some point, teenagers will probably come in contact with the opportunity to do so, whether or not, this particular show has any influence on that. I can't really say, but I could see, and I do see why there is some speculation out there that could be the case.
How far do you have to go to make it feel realistic? Because there's a lot of nudity in this show. There's a lot of, obviously, the exposure to drugs. Like, it's an HBO show. And honestly, I love the brashness of the nudity, because you don't see that in TV shows. And I feel like it should be normalized to an extent. But it is also difficult to even say that, knowing what the director Sam Levinson put some of his actors through, especially where Zendaya and Sydney Sweeney in particular were like, this is unnecessary for my character to be nude in this scene. So that's its own aside, but I feel like TV shows like this have to be extremely cautious, and even the actors said so themselves. Zendaya put out a couple of different Instagram posts where she's like, please know this is for mature audiences only. Right. Even then, like, no matter how many PSAs you put out, people are still going to watch. And I guess in the end of it, it's up to someone's decision, and it's not whether or not you make the thing. And maybe you can take cautions and have respect for people who have drug addictions or have struggled with those. But then also, in the end, someone is still going to watch it if they choose to.
I think as shocking to a lot of people to see portrayal of that type of usage, and even looking at 13 Reasons Why, that is very shocking. But I think that that's exactly what the directors were looking for. You see that shock value in all sorts of media, right? It doesn't matter. If you go to social media, there'll be, a nice picture of a landscape that might have, a couple hundred likes, but some video of like a small animal getting picked off by a bird or something is going to have tons of likes. That shock value, I think, is done a lot in media, just generally speaking. I personally think that it's a good thing for people to be able to see accurate representations of those, and see the impact that it can have on your life or the lives of those around you. So 13 Reasons Why, because your brain is not mature enough to realize that there are consequences for those actions, because it seems like a dead end, right? Yeah. Specifically talking about the suicide scene in 13 Reasons Why. As shocking as that is, though, it shows you what happens after that, the lives that it affects after that. And that's something that whenever you're in that space mentally, you don't see that. Because if you could, it would stop you from doing that. As someone who has experienced that low of a low before, I can say that I definitely was not thinking about the impact that it was going to have on those around me. I was thinking of myself. And I think that it has been said before that those things are quite selfish. But also, like, I've had friends that have carried through on that. And I think back often of what would our friendship look like today. They weren't thinking of those things whenever that happened. Whenever you might be at a party and someone might offer you, blow or something like that. And you're thinking, oh, hey, I'm just having a good time. But this show is showing you that can become actually an addiction and how that can ruin your life and the series of events that will unfold after that. And it's not that way for everyone, right? Yeah. This is Rue's particular story. I can't remember the main character from 13 Reasons Why. That is their particular story. It's not always like that. But I think that they do a good job of showing kind of the majority of how those instances turn out. So as shocking as it is, I really do believe that it is important for us to have representation of that, not just in the style of like documentaries, which are obviously very realistic. That is the whole goal of documentaries, but also having it portrayed accurately or pretty accurately in media, more mainstream media.
We're going to talk about a couple of points from each season. Okay. Some things I'm really excited about to dive into. Number one being a film stylistic choice, which was season 1, episode 1, The Rotating Broom. So
I know you like that scene.
I love it so much. I honestly, that's what caught me. I think New Level by A$AP Ferg starts playing and then the room starts rotating and it's this whole thing. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I've seen in different TV shows, I think one being How to Get Away with Murder, the camera is tilted when the main character is in mental disarray. And I love seeing how camera angles are used subtly to show a character's mental state. I think that's important. I don't think that's used enough in a lot of films. I'm starting to see it be used in a lot more TV shows as TV has become cinematic and is, for me personally, has become more enjoyable to watch than movies. Which also doesn't make sense because they're all an hour long and I can sit through 3 happily. But the idea of a 3-hour movie is like mentally an odd time commitment to me.
Right.
But that's an aside.
Yeah.
Are there any particular scenes that you can remember from season 1 that stood out to you?
Was it the house party scene where I just remember it might have been Maddie walking into the house and I don't know what song was being used.
That scene is the Halloween scene. So that's when Nate and Maddie get back together. I rewatched that scene like 3 different times, after seeing it for the first time because of how powerful it was. So that's its own subsect of this conversation. It's just the music in general. So Labyrinth is the composer. So music is a really big element to the show. I get very excited about talking about this element because I listened to Labyrinth's stuff nonstop since discovering the show. That's what kept me coming back each episode, especially one thing I noticed was when they show the Euphoria title screen, they let it sit for almost too long because the music is playing over it, and it normally is like either a really iconic rap song or like one of Labyrinth's songs. I like how they bring music in as almost this side character, or really one of the main characters. So in that scene you're talking about, the Halloween scene, Maddie and Nate come walking in. I think he is in a prison uniform. I think she may be in a cowgirl outfit. Rue and Jules are dressed up in, I think, the Romeo and Juliet cosplay outfit. So like Rue's in a suit, Jules is dressed like an angel. They're off in the distance. The music kind of is like blurry playing in the background, and it starts getting louder as the two of them walk in, and people like rotate, look at them, realizing how insane it is that they're back together. Nate picks her up, puts her on the counter. They start making out in front of everyone, and then that's like when the music is just like going. It's super synthy. But it's so powerful and so damn cool looking. I think it's just like one of the best scenes in season 1. Not only showing like the power of the characters and like Nate's power over Maddie, but his intimidation of Jules. Labyrinth's style is very LSD-esque. So it's very dreamy, soft. His voice is incredible. The main song for season 1 is All For Us. And I didn't know this until researching for this podcast, that hints of it are played throughout the entire first season whenever Rue is tempted to kind of go back into addiction. But it's not played in full until she bends over the book, the last scene of season 1, and starts playing. She's stumbling through the house. And then all of a sudden she's outside and a choir is singing. She's singing with it, which I thought was so cheesy the first few seconds. I was like, are you serious? Are you kind of like turning this into a weird musical? And then very quickly I felt differently, and I thought that was the most powerful way that you could possibly end a series like this. I thought like her stumbling through the choir crowd, and then all of a sudden this marching band comes out and she's like climbing up this like tower of people, and then she just falls, and that's how the season ends. I was just like, what? Who thought of that?
Absolutely. I feel like I kind of got remnants of the same thing whenever I believe it's season 2. And I think that it is that 5th episode where she has the breakdown where she's, I don't know what song she's singing, if it's like Frank Sinatra or something. It's like an old-timey kind of song. And she's just like going through the house and bouncing off the walls like ever so, like the timing was just perfect of everything. And then the one thing that caught my eye, and I think might have been my first sign that this was like, she's like gone because there's no way that this is like actually like happening for her, was whenever she turns, grabs a packet of Pop-Tarts out of a box, and then just goes like this, and the Pop-Tarts fly out and land perfectly in the toaster. And I was like,
I don't remember that.
She's just, and I think she grabs like milk out of the fridge or something.
But was that when she was high or when she was back on opiates?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what drug she had taken at that point. But I do remember the scene got cut off because the mother, I believe, or the sister was in the kitchen and was like, Rue? And she was like, oh my God. And like,
high.
she's like,
that.
I'm messed up right now, man. So, but very similar.
We live in a state where cannabis use is legal. And it's interesting to me how weed was portrayed in the show, because it didn't show up much. I think
it was almost like an excuse thing. Because do you remember the conversation that she had with her younger sister of like, because she, I believe it might have been a narration of her again, where she's like, if you're gonna get high on some stuff after being an addict and your family knows the warning signs, cover it with a different drug that's like lesser. And so she like almost did this like feeding method with her sister of like, I've been thinking about smoking pot again, knowing that pot wasn't her goal. It was, oh well, you know, also to maybe a child who isn't taking as much note of like what specific behaviors is happening. High is just high at that age. You know, if seeing her sister on opiates, in her mind could have been just, oh yeah, right. She said that she was going to start smoking pot again. So using that, like kind of leading conversation, I do remember thinking like, why do we choose marijuana? Like, yeah.
Especially so doing, this is even just outside of the show, understanding like how the war on drugs played into how we see drugs now, how difficult it's been to bring cannabis into a legal state, where you literally can look at graphs and you see alcohol is far more damaging than essentially any of them. And I almost wish that in tandem with opiates, they would have shown alcohol addiction, which maybe they
might be some remnants of it.
They do show it with Nate.
And his father, I feel like, too.
Yeah. Him speeding down the road, drinking like beer. I totally forgot about that until now. That was a little scary for me.
Yeah.
Because I had a parent who literally did that.
Yeah.
Which I also appreciate seeing elements of that, because that shows Sam, as well as who else was contributing to writing it, like literally know how it feels to be around addiction. There is one character that I'm very interested to see show up more in season 3, because it's going to show that Rue has some consequences for her decisions, which is Laurie, the drug dealer.
Oh God, let's talk about
her. What a very interesting character.
Yep.
Scares the absolute F out of me because of how calm she is. Like, she's literally made to be like you. Like, I think the first introduction to her was episode 1 of season 2. Pretty sure Rue took cocaine. I don't remember the drug that she took. She's on something, so she's all out of it. That's when we meet Faye for the first time. Fezco is in the car. He's like telling them to shut up. They won't. They all of a sudden get dragged into this apartment. They're like being told to strip down. Laurie emerges out of nowhere and she's like, I'm so sorry for that. It's just security. And it's just weird. And I honestly think that like was the best way to paint a drug dealer, was this suburban white looking woman. Who I think, to my knowledge from research, was put on morphine because she had an injury in high school, and that's how she became addicted, and then she became a dealer after that. There are a lot of theories around her. So the first thing is her lying to Rue. I think it's season 2, episode 5, that notorious explosive scene with Rue and her mom. That's like when Rue gets out of the house, is running, somehow makes it to Laurie's house. And she's in withdrawal, which is why she's so manic. Yeah. And Laurie tells her that she doesn't have any pills. And Rue, I think, tries to go looking for them. Something happens, like Rue just completely collapses, breaks down. Laurie puts her in the tub, opens a suitcase, and it has a ton of pills in them, but gives her morphine instead. And some fan theories is that she did that so that Rue would forget what was happening, because Rue wakes up and she's literally locked from the inside in the apartment, is struggling to get out. The television is always on, which there's this other theory about Laurie sex trafficking people, especially addicts who can't pay things back, where people think that Laurie was grooming Rue to be essentially her next victim. There's also this metaphor that comes with Laurie's caged birds. So there's a bird in the living room that sounds off whenever someone is, I think, either walking in and out of the door or makes noise. There are metaphors around that, obviously, of like a beautiful thing being caged. That's the obvious thing. If you watch that episode with subtitles, and I even caught this without subtitles, Rue focuses on this one door that is padlocked from the outside for just a little bit too long, and it's like slowly zooming in on it. And in subtitles, it says scratching noises. So it is a theory that someone is in another room, like being like trapped. Yeah. And that these birds start sounding off whenever those noises become louder, as if they're trying to mask
cover it up,
the sounds.
I mean, so there's got to be a bigger plan in Laurie's mind. I also think that from my perception of Laurie and her little drug ring and her business, right? Like, the girl obviously was not hurting to have another dealer deal her stuff for her and make her more money. Like, it seems like she's got plenty of people to do that. Whenever she gave Rue the suitcase full of stuff, I immediately knew, like, this is not going to turn out well. Mm-hmm. And my brain, whenever Lori gives the spiel of, you know, I always get my money, and if you don't give me my money, you know, after selling these, you know, I'll sell you to some really bad people.
Yep.
Immediate sex trafficking.
Yep.
Like, or drug mule. Either one of those things, but definitely because Rue is such a young female, it definitely did lean in my mind towards the sex trafficking. I think that Lori had this plan all along.
Yep.
And I think that that is a great element to the story, to be honest, because Lori very well might be one of the most evil people in this entire series.
I think she is.
And she is the most calm.
Yup.
She is just so... And the way that she interacts with Rue, like, you almost kind of get, like, these little hints of, like, motherly, like, taking care of her, getting her into the tub. All of these things definitely feels a lot like grooming.
It's so definitely feels a lot like grooming. Psychopathic, whichever one it is. Like, it's bone chilling.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see in season 3 since Rue's mother decided to get rid of everything in that suitcase.
Yep. It's not going to be a good look on the show if they don't address that, though, which I think they would be idiots to not address that. Mm-hmm. But that was one of the biggest criticisms from season 2, was that Laurie shows up middle of the season and just nothing is shown, even like by the end of it. And you see everything happen with Fez and Ash, which that's its own thing. Let's dive into that for a second. Ash wasn't supposed to die, apparently. It was supposed to be Fez. It got changed the last, like, minute, I think the day before they started
Was
filming.
It because there was such... I mean, I remember there being such a freaking outrage, because there were, like, little hints, right? That, like...
Someone was going to die.
Yep. And everyone just immediately thought that it was Fez, because I mean, obviously, his relationship with Faye and then this other guy, which we come to find out everything that happens to him, it just... definitely feels someone's going to turn on someone. There's a snake or a rat somewhere, you know, in this situation.
Even with his relationship with Lexi, making it look like, oh, they're going to have like a really great like time together.
It was just
like,
adding
we're going to like
up.
steal this away from,
Yeah, it was just adding up. And so, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the outright, I even remember amongst my friend group, we would all watch it on Sunday night from all of our different, I mean, obviously my roommate and I here in Vegas, and then my 2 other best friends over in St. Louis. So we would actually watch it live together. We would all like FaceTime to start, like press it, and then like no one was allowed to pause. We couldn't skip the intros, like anything like that. And we would just live text this entire thing. And just like there would have been so much outrage. They killed Fez.
Yep.
And I don't think people would have stopped watching necessarily, but I do know that there were threats of that, like on Twitter and stuff. People would be like, I swear if they kill Fez off, then I'm done.
Like
and
they could have honestly, in my mind, killed off Maddie, Cassie, Kat.
I thought Maddie was going to die for a second too whenever Nate came into her. Oh my gosh, you want to talk
that was scary. I actually forgot about that.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about
dead
that.
silence.
That was
in my home.
That was rough.
That was really hard. And then to find out that there wasn't a bullet in the gun at all.
I don't remember.
Because it showed him putting
totally
one in before he went into the house.
Yeah.
And then he went up there and then had that entire altercation.
He was literally doing it just to get the CD back.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it.
And then I want to say that there wasn't even a bullet in the gun.
I don't remember.
I can't remember for the life of me. But that
even
like
taking that back
intense.
To like the beginning of our conversation with Jules, where he was like this soft spot for her. It just, I don't know, man. It's like he shows that one side. It reminds me of Lori, honestly, where it's like you have like these little bits of soft sides. Like you want to like believe in that character, but then you see what he did to get that. And that's not fair to Maddie, no matter how neurotic and crazy that she is. No. She's honestly one of my favorite characters.
And I think that it's interesting to see Maddie's character arc too, because during that entire first season and, possibly a little bit of the second season too, Maddie's the let's see, I can't use my normal sparkly words here.
I know.
I'm trying to keep it as low as possible. She was the baddie. Yeah, Maddie was the baddie. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning of this, the person that you were like not going to cross, right?
Yeah.
And then to see kind of how she gets treated
Yeah.
through, you know, the crap that her best friend pulls on her, and then the love of her life, which I obviously put in air quotes because I don't believe that anything that toxic is the person meant for you. Because we see that Maddie actually doesn't, we see little glimmers of Maddie. She's a good human who it seems like has obviously had her fair share of, you know, issues kind of in her upbringing. And probably a lot of the ways that she has been, you know, it probably goes into the media that she consumed because of, you know, that generation that's being portrayed. The sexualization, you know, of her all throughout the seasons. Too, how that's potentially playing into this relationship. But then you think that she's going to be the bad guy, right? And then she ends up just kind of being this girl who gets screwed over. You know?
A lot more empathy and compassion for her, because I
towards
think
the end,
that happens to so many girls. Whether or not it's to that level, I think that was so important to the show and to her character arc. It even kind of goes back to Cassie. I remember people talking about McKay and how he treated her, where he was more blasé, where she was all into the relationship and he kept holding back. And I don't know. Also, I didn't know he was in college. Totally forgot about that. And I went back and rewatched the first season and was like, there's so much I missed about this. He wouldn't commit to her. And then she gets pregnant. She goes and gets an abortion. He isn't like there to support her at all. So you see just how most all of the girls, if not all of them, the main cast of girls are just screwed over by different guys. All right. We have so many more thoughts on this, but we're going to end this for today. Thanks for tuning in to Media Diet. We enjoyed talking about this so much. I loved talking to you with this. I don't think you and I have actually gone this in depth with it.
It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. So as always, hit that bell icon so you get notified for every time that we post a Media Diet episode. Please give us a like, just because that helps us so much with the algorithm, that helps get this channel going. Comment, especially with some hot takes. We would love to hear your thoughts on this. I love going through Reddit and reading people's comments on it. I think that's the best way to get some conversations going about the show and hopefully impacting the director and writer's thoughts on it. Is there anything else I was supposed to say? The like, comment, the subscribe.
Just say, thanks for watching. I can't resist you said.
Hold on. No.
Oh.
You better come stand right here and don't move.
Thanks for watching. We'll catch you soon.